All right, good evening. My name is Catherine and I work with SEB Housing. This is the information session for the 75 total affordable rental housing units at Atwood in Saugus, Massachusetts. And so the purpose of this session is to give a little bit of background information on the available apartments. I'll also cover the application, the eligibility, and the lottery processes, and then what to expect after the lottery is run. If you have any questions during this session, you're encouraged to either type them into the Zoom chat, or I'll be asking throughout the presentation if anybody has any questions. This meeting is also being recorded, as you should have heard when you entered the room. And so if you want to watch the recording after tonight, you will be able to find it on our website. And if you have any questions after tonight, so if you're watching this session after it's been recorded, you can email us at info@sdbhousing.com. That's the best way, or the easiest way, I should say, quickest way to get in touch with us if you think of anything after tonight. All right, so just for some background information on who we are. So SEB Housing, we are an off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we're not the on-site management team at Atwood. We're not on-site at the building. We've been hired by the developer to market the affordable apartments, conduct the information session, collect and review applications to determine an applicant's eligibility so that we can eventually run the lottery. So in the initial phases, we're your main point of contact rather than the management office, but then further along in the process, the on-site management team at Atwood will take over as your main point of contact. So there's a few steps in this process. The first is to apply for the lottery and to be found eligible for the affordable housing program based on your application that you've submitted. So you'll be in touch with SEB Housing during that time. We can answer any questions you have on the affordable housing program, the application. We'll run the lottery. The second step in the process is that you'll be in touch with the leasing office for lease eligibility following the lottery. That's separate from the screening that you'll have with SEB Housing for your eligibility for the affordable housing program. So the lease screening with the leasing office could involve a credit check, rental history check, background checks, that sort of thing. And then the third step in the process is once you've been approved by the leasing office and you've been found lease eligible, you're then going to be directed back to SEB Housing, and we will ask you to provide the verifications of the income, asset, and other information that you've listed on your lottery application. Initially, when you're filling out an application, you're just self-reporting your financial circumstances, but we do need to verify it as one of the last steps in the process to confirm your eligibility for the program. So I have a couple slides that I'm flipping through. There is a property website for Atwood, so it's atwoodsaugus.com. Also, if you haven't gone to sebhousing.com yet, that's where you find a lot of information about how to apply and all of that. So if you go to sebhousing.com and you click on the Affordable Housing Opportunities page, you'll select I want to rent, since this is a rental opportunity, and then you'll select Atwood and you'll be taken to a page specific to this property with downloadable versions of the application, the information packet, and the information packet has a lot of the information that I'm going to be going through during this session. There's also a QR code and a Jotform link, a hyperlink to the online application. We do encourage you to complete the online application. It's going to be the quickest way to apply and ensure that your application is received right away. Once you've submitted the online application, you're going to receive a confirmation email. And if for any reason your application is not complete, we will let you know and get back to you on that. Or if for some reason the online application is not an option for you, you can download the lottery application. There is a PDF on our website, and or you could request a paper application to complete. If you submit a paper application, you can submit it to us in one of several ways. You can email it to us, fax it to us, you can send it by regular mail, or if you're near the Needham area, that's where our office is located, and the address is on the front of the application at 257 Hillside Ave. So whichever one of those options is best for you to apply, we encourage you to do so. We do again, encourage everyone to complete that online application if you can. It will be the quickest way to make sure that it's received. We do encourage you to complete this application as soon as possible if you are interested in this opportunity. It's fairly brief. It should only take you a few minutes to complete. You don't have to submit supporting income, asset, or tax documentation yet, because this is the early stages of the process. If you are one of the top households on one of the waiting lists following the lottery, you will then need to supply that information. So applications are due by July 16th, so a little bit less than a month now. So applications have to be delivered by 2 p.m. that day. The online application link will shut down at 2 p.m. on July 16th, so just be aware of that. You do not need to be a resident of Saugus to apply for this lottery. So for some background information on the units themselves, you'll see on your screen right now, and I'll go through some of this as well. So it is anticipated that these first affordable units at Atwood will be available for occupancy in August, shortly after the lottery, since the lottery will be held in August as well. There's going to be 2 additional phases of units being made available after that date, though, so a month or possibly more than a month afterwards. So the timeline might be pushed back a little bit, but that is the current estimate for availability for these apartments. Again, there's a property website listed on the slide there, but Atwood, it's a new 300 apartment community located off of Route 1 in Saugus. Its location provides convenient access to the local businesses and restaurants on Route 1, and then also easy access to Boston. Through this lottery process, the 75 affordable apartments in this community will be made available only to households earning up to 80% of the area median income for the Boston-Saugus area. The units themselves feature stainless steel appliances. There's in-unit laundry. The building amenities include an outdoor pool, fitness center, resident lounges, grilling stations, a pet spa. A free parking space is included for residents, and additional spaces could be rented for a fee. Tenants are going to pay electricity, which covers heating, cooking, and hot water. And then tenants will also be responsible for their portion of the water sewer charges. So there's affordable studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments being offered. And that breakdown is listed on your screen here and in the information packet. So there's 7 studio units, and the rents will be $2,050. There are 34 1-bedroom units, and those rents will be $2,154. There's 26 total 2-bedroom units. The rents will be $2,566. One of those 2 bedrooms has features for persons with hearing impairment. And I should also mention that one of the 1 bedrooms has features for persons with mobility impairment, so it's considered to be disabled accessible. There's also 8 3-bedroom units, and the rent at those 3-bedroom units will be $2,949, and one of the 3 bedrooms has features for persons with mobility impairments and is considered disabled accessible. The affordable units at Atwood, they were selected by the owner and were approved by Mass Housing as being representative of the units in the building as a whole. So they're not the smallest units, they're not all clustered in one location in the building, and they're not identifiable as being affordable in any way. The affordable rents are not set in accordance with a specific household's income or financial circumstances. So it means that the rent doesn't change if your income changes, similar to a voucher program or something like that. For this housing program, the rents are set using a formula that's based on HUD's area median income for the Boston area. So the rent may increase once per year, typically around when the time HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development, revises their area median income. But there would always be advanced written notice to you as a tenant, and the rents that are advertised will be the rents of the for all affordable residents for the first year. There will be no rent changes mid-lease. So again, if you have any questions, let me know either just by typing into the chat or unmuting yourself, I'm going to move on to the eligibility requirements for the Affordable Housing Program. So there's 4 eligibility criteria for this affordable housing program. These are listed in the information packet, but just to give you an idea of what they are. So the first is that households must have qualifying income. And the parameters for that is on your screen right now. So there's a couple charts there. The maximum income, so that 80% of AMI is by household size. So if you're a 1-person household and your gross income for the year is more than $91,200, you would not be eligible for this lottery. And I'll talk a little bit more too about the approximate minimum incomes there in a couple minutes. The second eligibility criteria is that households cannot own a home upon move-in. So if you own a home now, you would need to have sold it and be off the deed by the time you are leasing an affordable unit at Atwood. Another item to keep in mind for eligibility purposes, household priority is going to be given based on household composition. So generally, that means that larger households are going to have priority for these larger units, 2- and 3-bedroom units. But also for this lottery, keep in mind that 1-person households cannot apply for 2-bedroom units, and 2-person households cannot apply for 3-bedroom units unless a household member has a disability that would require a reasonable accommodation for an extra bedroom. And then finally, this doesn't come up often, but households cannot have financial interest in the development. So you can't be considered what the program refers to as a related party. So if you work with the developer or the management company, you're not going to be eligible for this opportunity. So to circle back on the first eligibility criteria to explain some more, the income limit. So since these are affordable units, they're being made available to rent at prices that are lower than identical units within the building, the market rate units in the building. Maximum income limits are set by household size. So everyone that's in your household, you want to make sure you have that total count there when you're looking at this chart. The numbers that are listed there, like I said, if you're a 1-person household, you would need to make below $91,200 to apply for this lottery. And then again, you don't need to submit any verification of your income at this stage, but you will be asked for it at a later stage. So you just want to make sure when you're filling out your application, you are including all income that you have coming into the household. You want to list that or just estimate it as best you can on the application. Income for this program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So that includes, bonuses and overtime. The only exceptions to this are minors. So anyone under the age of 18 who's earning a wage, we're not going to count their wage income. And also, if you have a dependent full-time student who's working, we're only going to count the first $480 of their wages when we're determining your eligibility for the program. We are required to count gross income. So that's the amount you make before taxes, although most of us do not take home the full amount of your salary. Gross income has to be counted according to the program guidelines. How we calculate your income is not one size fits all because everyone's income circumstances are unique. So some applicants will have a standard weekly salary that's consistent throughout the year. Others could be self-employed or working seasonally. So in those circumstances, we might need to look further into the past to be able to project what your income will be or may be for the next 12 months. In general, any income you have been making, we're going to assume that you are going to continue making it going forward unless we have some sort of definitive documentation from your employer, for example, stating that you're no longer earning that income source. So that could be a written letter from your employer saying that bonuses will not be given this year and that sort of thing. If you're self-employed, you are going to need to provide a profit and loss statement to confirm your business expenses. And we have a sample, one of those for you if you need one. When you're filling out your application, again, just make sure that you're filling you're listing all of your income sources. So not just wages, but Social Security, if you have it, child support, if that applies to you, pensions, unemployment compensation, that sort of thing. There's no minimum income for this affordable housing program. However, most management teams, including the team at Atwood, want to be sure that all tenants can afford the rent. So regardless of whether or not the unit is market rate or affordable, all renters will need to meet the minimum income thresholds that are income and asset thresholds that are listed on your screen right now. So management company has set a minimum household income equivalent to 2.5 times the monthly rent. And those amounts are on your screen now. So if you're looking to rent a 1-bedroom, for example, you would need to make at least $64,600 to apply for a 1-bedroom. So those amounts aren't set in stone like the income limits. And what I mean by that is it's going to be the leasing office's final decision as to whether or not you have enough income to qualify for renting one of their units. So if you have some liquid assets that you're able to access to be able to afford the 1-bedroom rent, but your gross income is about $60,000, for example, but you have more money in the bank that you'd be able to access, they may approve you. So that's why on your screen it says the approximate minimum income. If you have a housing voucher like Section 8, you can disregard the minimum income amounts because they don't apply to your household. If you do have a housing voucher that you plan to use at this property, you want to check with the agency that issues your voucher to confirm that the rents are within the agency's payment standards or maximum rent. The leasing office will eventually confirm with your housing authority that the rents are permissible, but obviously you want to know that as soon as possible. Okay, so basically you need to have between this minimum income floor and the maximum program income limits to qualify for this opportunity. There's no asset limit for rental opportunities. So you might have maybe you're retired and you have a lot of assets in the bank. That's fine. You still could apply for this, and just know that although we do not although there is no asset limit, we do still need to collect information from you related to your assets. And that's because assets could be generating income, which we do need to total up for your household. So you'll be asked on your application to disclose your assets. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in applying, get the process started as soon as possible. Also want to mention too that you can apply for more than one unit size. So if you're filling out the online application and you think you might be interested in both a studio and a 1-bedroom, for example, you should indicate that on your application. There's no downside to doing that, but there is a potential downside if you only apply to, say, a studio and then later decide that you're also interested in a 1-bedroom. And that downside is, these waiting lists may be quite long, so you may miss out on the opportunity to get a unit because you would be automatically added to the bottom of that waiting list since you were not in the lottery for that other bedroom size. So when you're filling out the application, if you think you might be interested in more than one unit size, go ahead and apply for more than one. Once we get your lottery application, we'll let you know if there's any information missing or if anything appears incorrect, so you have the chance to resubmit. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you'll be sent an email with your lottery application number, which is in the form of a series of numbers. And that is the number that's going to be drawn during the lottery. It's just meant to be an anonymous identifier. So it's not a ranking of any sort at this time. It just corresponds with the order in which we approved your application. So if you were the very first applicant to submit an application for the Atwood, your lottery number would be A.001. In that email, you're also going to see confirmation of if your household qualifies for local preference. And if you, actually no, is there local preference in this lottery? Let me just, hold on one second here. There is no local preference. So forget that I said that. All households will have the same priority in this lottery because there is not going to be preference for households who live or work full-time in Saugus. But in that email that you receive, there's going to be a lot of information that you want to confirm is accurate. So it's going to have your lottery application number, but it's also going to confirm if you applied for a disabled accessible unit. It's going to confirm what bedroom sizes that you applied for. So ensure that all of that looks correct to you. If you think anything needs to be updated or changed, let us know. We can do that for you before the lottery is run. There's also going to be a link to a documentation requirements guide. That guide is, it provides details on the items that will be submitted, that will need to be submitted prior to the final approval by SEB Housing. So we suggest that you review that to make sure you're aware of the documents that will be needed. If you're found ineligible for any reason, we encourage you to contact us with any questions. So the lottery itself is going to be held virtually on August 6th at 6 p.m. It's going to be a Zoom session just like this one. Given the large number of applicants that we're expecting for this lottery, it's going to be held digitally, meaning that the lottery numbers are going to be randomized on the screen, and I'll share the results with you via a screen share. Every lottery number is going to be included in the lottery. So sometimes when we think of lotteries, we think, okay, if there's 75 units, there's going to be 75 winners, quote unquote, but that isn't the case here. The purpose of the lottery is to establish an order for the waiting list that we'll need to formulate after the lottery. So generally, it is better to be called earlier, but it's not going to be the deciding factor as to whether or not you are high up on these waiting lists. So after the lottery, we're going to populate the waiting list. We're going to take priorities into consideration. For example, if your household requires the disabled accessible unit, and we'll do our best to send those waiting lists to applicants as soon as possible, usually either that night or by the next morning. You will have an email from us with the waiting list attached. When you're reviewing that email, you're going to find your lottery application number and see where you fall on the waiting list. You'll then have a better idea as to whether or not you'll be moving on to the next step in the process, which will be to apply for a lease with the leasing office. So we'll put you in touch with the leasing office. They'll also have your contact information, and you can get in touch with them within about 5 days. And just a reminder too, the SEB Housing is going to be screening for your lottery and program eligibility. We're not going to be screening for your lease eligibility. The leasing office, the management company, will be doing that. Be aware that leasing offices tend to invite more households to complete a lease screening than there are available units. So for example, at Atwood, there are 8 total affordable 3-bedroom units, but there could be 16 or more households that are invited to complete the lease screening. And that's because management companies want to be sure that the leasing of these units is not slowed down by households who either don't qualify or who maybe have decided they're no longer interested. So immediately following the lottery, if you see that you're the first household on one of these waiting lists, we always just caution everyone, don't immediately give notice to your current landlord if you're renting, because you still have to be lease approved by Atwood and then have your final eligibility completed by SEB Housing. Once the management team has approved you to lease at their property, that's the point in the process where you'll be directed back to SEB Housing. You will have reserved a unit, and we will have been notified that you can go ahead and start your final eligibility screening with SEB. And that's the point in the process where you'll be asked to submit pay stubs, asset information. You need to send in verifications to us to confirm everything that was on your initial lottery application. So hopefully by that point, you've been able to review the documentation requirements guide that we sent along with your lottery number, and you've gathered some of those documents like pay stubs and such to get into us. You'll have about 10 days to get that information into us. There's a lot of information that's required, so we don't expect everyone to have everything necessarily on their first submission. No worries about that at all. We're going to work with you and make sure that you get a complete file into us. Once SEB Housing approves your file, we'll notify you, and we'll notify the leasing office, and you'll be able to sign the lease and establish a move-in date with that leasing office. Once you have leased, you're done with screenings. There's no more income screenings after, for the beginning of your tenancy. When your lease renewal date is coming up, we hope that you've loved living at Atwood and you want to continue living there beyond the first year. If you do want to renew your lease, you'll just need to recertify your income with the owner. So with the leasing office prior to your lease renewal. They usually start that process about 3 or 4 months in advance. If your income has increased and it's now above, at this lease renewal time, it's now above the 80% of AMI, that's fine. Households remain eligible for the affordable housing apartments as long as the household income doesn't exceed 140% of the area median income. So to give you an example of that, if a household of 2 would have qualified for this affordable housing unit or this lottery with an income at or below $104,200, that same family can make up to $145,880 at the time of their recertification in order to remain eligible to rent that affordable apartment. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there. If you get a raise or if you start a new job, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to continue living in the affordable apartment necessarily. So that about covers what I wanted to get through during the session tonight. Again, if you have questions after viewing this, we encourage you to email us at info@sdbhousing.com. We know many of you have already applied online, and you have a few more weeks to do that if you're interested in applying for Atwood and Saugus. We look forward to getting your application, and thanks so much for joining or watching this afterwards. Have a good night.